will start off with our HR Speak Live today. I was just waiting for a few more participants to join in, and I can see that we are having the numbers increase. But let's start off. So first of all, let me introduce our guest today, Mr. Shourya K Chakravarty. He is the CHRO at Aptech Ltd. So let me do a very quick introduction first, and then we'll hear from
Sure.
you, Shaurya. So, by the way, as
Sure.
I was saying, Shaurya is the CHRO at Aptech Limited. And here's a little bit more about him. I was trying to see what Shaurya has done in the past. I think the LinkedIn profiles always helps. So that's how I got to know more about him. So he has worked with First Source, with HSBC, GE, General Mills, and also the Aditya Birla Group. Almost 2.5 decades of experience. He's done his post graduation from XISS, and he's a professional, fully accredited NLP certification diploma holder. Of course, there's more to it than just those few bullet points, and therefore, Shaurya, first of all, let me welcome you on behalf of the chapter as well as on behalf of all the participants.
Thank you so much, Zubin, and everybody at the chapter for this wonderful opportunity.
So just to know you a little bit better, and I prefer to hear it from people coming from them. And as you can see, I have divided this question into two different parts. One is the professional aspect, and then there's a personal aspect. So
Mhm.
we would love to hear from you an introduction, a self-introduction, both professionally and personally. We would like to know about.
Okay. So, Zubin, you've already mentioned about the professional side. But somewhere in the past 2.5 decades, the professional and the personal both got merged. And we live in such a world that, there's nothing, you really can't compartmentalize it anymore. So it's all together right now. But having said that, yes, I'll share an interesting anecdote because I think some of the people are pretty young here. Uh, my first job was with the Aditya Birla Group. Uh, that was long time back, and I had joined in a place called Renukut. So Renukut is where Hindalco Industries is located, their integrated aluminum complex. And there's a little secret which some of my colleagues at the Aditya Birla Group knew, but not everybody. So, when within the first week there, that was June of 1996, the mosquitoes probably really loved my blood, and I was diagnosed with malaria and admitted to the hospital and all of that. And typically young at that point in time, and something happened, and the day I got discharged from the company hospital, I ran away. I ran away home. So I said, I'm not going to come back here. Let me go and look out for a job elsewhere. But as luck would have it, one thing after the other fell in place, and I was sent back within quotes. I was actually sent back with an escort. My father said, "No, you better get back there. You've got a job and start your career." Of course, he explained to me, and the company was kind enough to, say that no, this guy needs to come back. So that was an interesting anecdote, and that taught me the very first lesson about resilience. In today's COVID times, we hear a lot of that word bordering on misuse, actually. But that is something which taught me at that point in time. Yeah, and of course, thereafter have been working in different companies, different setups. Incidentally, my stint in HSBC was at Kolkata for a very short period of 6 months. So I was part of the core team which set up the HSBC Group Service Center in Salt Lake, Sector 5. Thereafter, and more recently with Aptech for the past 10 years, where with the help of my team, I have been able to do some fabulous initiatives both on the people front and the business front. And happy to share that just about last week, we were formally appraised and the result was declared by the CMMI Institute at PCMM level 5. So that was a huge achievement for Aptech as a company, and we succeeded in doing it within 25 months of being appraised at level 3, which was in 2018 April. So, and there have been other accolades, which are a result of the process rigor which we have followed as a team. So that in a nutshell is my professional. In terms of personal, I was born, brought up, educated in Ranchi. Thereafter, job got me to Bombay, Hyderabad, Calcutta, and then back to Bombay. So since the last 15 years, I'm settled here in Bombay, and family is here. So that's personal about me, and more as we go along.
All right, great. So, in terms of human resources, and I wanted to start off, and since there are a lot of young people also who keep attending our HR Speak Live, they're all here to learn. They're all here to learn from these discussions. There's a concept which has been there for quite some time, which is the HR business partner concept. For the benefit of the youngsters also in our session, I would like to ask you, I mean, what according to you is HR business partner? And most importantly, how successful has HR been to execute this role?
Very, very interesting concept. If you look at the evolution of today's HR function, it primarily began with IR. IR is still relevant. Then it went to personnel management, and then to HRD in the 80s and 90s, late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and formally evolved into the structure in the earlier part of this century, what we know today as HR business partner. Now, to me, this is a dated concept. HR is not a business partner, but HR is a part of the business. And the sooner we HR professionals realize that and believe that, that will make the difference. So an HR professional has to speak the language of the business. Otherwise, you will always be outside the fence. You'll never get inside the fence. So partnering is good, but you need to speak the language of the business. You need to be in sync with the business strategy. You need to be part of the annual operating planning process. You need to be part of every sales review meeting. Of course, sales is the economy of any company. You need to understand, people are important in any company, but considering this, HR as a business partner, HR is part of the business. If the business wasn't there, HR wouldn't exist. So I look at HR business partnering in that context. It has been successful, but in many companies it has been successful. It has played a very progressive role. In certain companies, it's still evolving. It hasn't reached that stage, and a lot of this comes from the traditional curriculum which we follow in the management institutes. That somewhere needs to undergo a complete change, because whatever concepts we learn is fine, but in the reality is actually totally different. You need certain skills which you can't imbibe when you are a student. So learning the business, and of course, what is most important is every HR professional has to be thorough with numbers. You can't say I'm an HR guy, so I don't know this. And numbers means I'm not talking about statistical analysis and regression and all of that. Sales numbers, what revenue numbers. So these are certain things, the language of the business, which is very, very important.
Right. Now I'm going to move on to our topic of our discussion. In fact, we have shared with all our participants
Mm-hmm.
the topic being scalability in a VUCA world. But before I move into that, just to give an introduction to what VUCA means. And so, how would you explain VUCA in layman's terms, if I would ask you that?
Hmm. So this is very interesting, and this whole topic is very close to my heart, and I'll tell you why. Uh, in 2016, uh, my managing director and we were discussing about scalability, and we were actually talking about scalability in the VUCA world. And we discussed one point after the other, and that's when we at Aptech coined the word scuba. We basically turned around scuba, VUCA, added the S to it, and called it scuba so that it's easy to pronounce. So we said that scalability was a given. Whatever VUCA world or whatever world it may be, it is a given. So how do you achieve that? So I'll come to that. But a very interesting thing, the origin of VUCA actually goes to the US Army, goes back to the US Army. When they said that when you go to the battlefield, and I think this was in the 80s, if my memory serves me right, in the battlefield, you would encounter a state of no control at times. There would be chaos. The situation would be unstable. There wouldn't be sufficient information. What do you do? Now, this is a very unique situation. Today, if you see, we are actually living VUCA. COVID didn't give advance notice to any one of us. It just arrived, and it arrived with a bang. So, people say that change is constant. I would say change is not constant anymore. VUCA is going to be the new constant. And VUCA will be there in everyday life. Even as we speak today, we don't know how many cases are going to come. The hospitals have had to scale up pretty fast. The entire health infrastructure has to scale up very fast. So that is a perfect example of scalability. Now, when you talk of a layman, let me tell you how we have defined VUCA. But I will follow the scuba with your permission so that it becomes easy. I am wired into that. So scalability for us is to think different, evolve, and deliver. The situations will change. One needs to accept that. You have to have the ability to think and think differently in different situations. By thinking differently, I am not saying that you need to be a thinker in those terms, but it's that every situation demands a different you. So that is how you need to think differently. And of course, evolve with time, evolve with different situations, you get the experience. And then, of course, deliver on that. That is key. What we typically call in corporates as execution. You may strategize, you may have lofty programs, but if you don't deliver and don't execute, everything falls flat. In terms of complexity, it's redefining products and processes. So if you see, there are many companies which have actually redefined their products and processes. If you look at education companies, schools, they had to switch over to online delivery. And let me tell you, my son's term exams of 12th are going on right now, and it is being done through Google Classroom. So the school principal reached out to us and they said that parents, we would request you to invigilate. Now that's a completely different new concept. I mean, okay, every morning from 7 to 8:45, I have to sit there, don the hat of an invigilator, not as a father. So there's a huge element of trust there, and there is a huge element of change which has come there. So the process has been redefined. And having said that, of course, this year the board exams have got cancelled. I don't know what is going to happen next year. But of course, the physical distancing has to be there. So earlier, if you had a 2 feet or a 3 feet distance between two students appearing in the exam hall, now you have to have 6 feet with all those protective gears and aids and all of that. So situation has changed. So everybody has to retune themselves to this normal which is coming up. And it's a moving normal. While people say that it's a new normal, yes, for the time it's a new normal, but the normal right now will get redefined more frequently than ever. Zubin, we HR professionals, when we interview people, we love to ask, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Even I wouldn't have seen this scenario. I wouldn't have visualized that a global pandemic will hit and everything, the world will come to a standstill. So this is the kind of complexity we go through. And uncertainty. So what does uncertainty require? Immediate action and fast mobilization. If you look at it, the way the world has reacted to this situation, to break the chain, to beat the curve, control the deaths, enforce social distancing norms. And I use the term world because various organizations, be it governmental, non-governmental, corporate, everyone has done that, right? In terms of volatility, now this is something which people will have to now do. And what we say is see, internalize, and adapt to changes. There are two ways. Either you are the change, or and as I say this, probably we ourselves have to revisit this now, because change is no more change, it's VUCA now. And in terms of ambiguity, well, life is full of colors. We say except the gray areas. I would say except the colors, different hues of life. You have to accept, move on, appreciate, move on with the different colors. So that to me is what is scuba or VUCA to a layman. Everything has to be what we call thinking on the feet, quick thinking. You don't have time anymore. The turnaround expected of anyone is lightning fast, not even super fast. So that is what things will have to move to now.
So in terms of uh, VUCA, and when you're saying scuba, so let's look at that aspect. And if you remember, when we were having a discussion sometime back, and you were talking about reinventing business, and you're giving me an example, well, short, and I wanted to keep that discussion for our session today. Was how, I mean, how did that concept start? How did you apply that in terms of your organization in Aptech? How did that help you? I mean, we're not, of course, we cannot go into delve into complete details, but I think it's going to be a very good learning for all of us as to how you could use scalability in the VUCA world to reinvent the business. What is that all about? I find it very interesting, and and I'm sure all of us would love to know about.
Interesting. So first, I'll let you. I'll tell you something that scalability is really about a change, a shift, a paradigm shift in mindset, right? It is about how you sort of reboot your processes, uh, upgrade yourself constantly. And the same thing applies in business. Like we use the term, what's that? Upskill yourself. You know, the same thing applies to business. Upskill your products. So, for example, we have a couple of brands, a couple of business lines which are very interesting. And, you know, for example, some of our courses are delivered through uh, augmented reality and virtual reality. So that has been a paradigm shift. We formed a separate division called the Industry Connect Alliances and Placements. You know, most of our students would get placed earlier. It was not that that was a service we would provide, but there was a need to have a dedicated division for that. And this division, if you look at it, even during this lockdown, has some of our students have been able to get jobs in reputed companies. Now, why was a separate focus required? Because we realized that there is a huge opportunity out there in terms of uh, practical application of the skills we impart to the students. So that somewhere has helped us in a major way. And of course, so, one of the things which we had done early on, we said that unemployability is our competition. In the animation business, we have two brands, Arena and Mac, and we had about 85% of market share. Now we said that unemployment is our competition. And virtually there is no one like us out there. And over the past couple of years, yes, it has given rich dividends. Now that is about us. But if you look at the general industry scenario which has happened because of this, there are a plethora of companies which have reinvented themselves, their products, their business module. There have been certain companies which have, why certain companies? I'll give you a very small time person in Bombay who had his own event management outfit doing corporate events and weddings. So of course the wedding comes. So now that the pandemic has hit, what does he do? Because companies and corporates are not going to have physical events for some time to come. So this guy has taken up a space and put a set and said this, and he's advertised that to all the corporates that this is the set, and we can host the event from here for you, and we can customize it. That is one aspect. He started a business of food and grocery delivery. Very interesting, and I know this person very well. He said during the initial days of the lockdown, there were major issues with, and there still are with some of the leading app-based where delivery, all these companies. So he has limited himself to a particular area in Mumbai. And he says that every day between 12 and 3, this will be live. You place the orders and you will get the fresh grocery at your doorstep. The differentiator is the packaging. And another thing which he's investing, he would have invested a couple of lakhs and probably in 6 months he would break even. The interesting part here is not just the packaging or that, he sanitizes the veggies, the vegetables, and the grocery before sending it. So that is a key differentiator. And he realized that the business opportunity lies there. Now people are more concerned about safety. If you look at it today, when you get anything into the home, it's a pain to wash everything, right? Either with a sanitizer or with a vegetable wash or whatever it is. It's actually painful. Let's accept that. So he realized that and he converted that into a business opportunity. So that is something which is about scalability. So it is not just companies like us or even larger companies are doing it, even regular businessmen are doing it, providing value added services. So that's how, they are reinventing themselves.
So, in terms of reinventing themselves, like you gave the example of Aptech, you've given this very interesting example about this person in Mumbai. Now I'm just trying to think of it from the perspective of the roles people play within the organization. So, if there's an organization, of course, primarily to decide on a course of action, uh, the ideas can come from anyone in the organization,
Hmm.
but you have the decision makers who would take the decision, right? So you have to strategize how you would do it. And now, in terms of strategizing and dealing with such situations, since we are talking about the present situation, and we're saying, okay, in terms of uh, the present situation, this is what somebody has done, this is what an organization has done, and many organizations, as well as perhaps many small time business people have done. Some have not been able to adapt, some have been able to adapt. Now, in terms of the bigger organizations, in such situations, what role, and I'm talking about very specifically the HR role here. So, somebody in an HR role, what are the challenges that, for example, you have faced? What are the challenges do you think HR would face in such a situation? And what would be the role of HR in this process of adapting to the new change, finding out new ideas, and when you're talking about scalability as an example, how does HR, as you've already said, you believe that HR is part of the business,
Correct.
and then therefore, how is that role in this particular aspect for HR?
So, Zubin, first of all, I think we had those inherent specializations in HR, you know, and that is not going to work anymore. Everybody needs to do everything now. You have to be multi-skilled. Tomorrow, if you are called on by the organization to do something, you will have to do it. And that's how you also learn as a professional. You also upskill yourself. One thing is to attend a course, but the other thing is to get there. And I believe that by doing it practically, that's one of the best things to do. So, what HR professionals, I think, first of all, very often in this situation, I'm saying I've been interacting with a lot of people. It's not personal. Sometimes they say, HR is the favorite punching bag. These are certain age-old isms, I would say, which need to be done away with. HR also plays a very important role, if you see, and that is of an undefined uh, go-to person for people to talk. So, and people need to respect the confidentiality, respect the faith with which that particular person is coming to you to talk. You may not have a solution, and I have seen it in this period. Many people, not only from my company, but across the industry, have called up to talk. The least I can do is to give them a hearing. And trust me, even if it takes 20 minutes, half an hour, or whatever, if you hear people, you may not be able to offer a solution or whatever they are looking for. But if you hear them out, it's, the person will actually realize, yes, somebody's heard me out. And so when there's a huge amount of mental health issues out there because of the pandemic, a lot of, and mental health is a taboo in India, even today. People don't want to talk about it, thinking that they'll be labeled by other people, but it's a stark reality. So the least we as professionals can do is to listen to people. I mean, that's what leaders do. That's what HR professionals do. When you go to a person with a particular discussion point, you may not come out with a solution, but you will certainly come out a better, uh, not a better, but a happy person. That yes, somebody's heard me. So that is something which in this situation is very, very important. And something which my team did is they called up, although we are, in terms of headcount, we are not massive, but my team called up every individual employee of the company in the first 10 days of the lockdown and said, and just to inquire about people. And on an average, a call lasted about 10 to 15 minutes just to inquire how are things, what's happening, where are you at your base location, or you managed to go home, is everybody safe at home? And subsequently, that was also done on a random basis, repeated. So we know that where our people are okay, they're safe, and all of that. It's like a close knit family. And we Indians, we pride ourselves in the family culture. So that is very important. The other thing about HR is uh, to be humane. Uh, Whatever has to be done, but it has to be done with a humane approach. You know, tough calls need to be taken, so be it, but they need to be done with a humane approach. Respect the dignity of the other person. Being in HR does not give you any power. You may be in a powerful position, but it does not give you the right or the power to kind of demean anyone else. So these are certain basic things which need to be done. In terms of skills and competencies, as I said earlier, HR professionals now need to probably be flexible to doing any role. For example, why would an HR professional not get into a sales role? Why is it that, you know, uh, most of the time it is preferred that, let me get into HR from another function? Why not the other way around? That is something which probably we'll have to also consider now.
All right. I move away from our topic of discussion for a moment before I come to some questions we've got. Also, a reminder to our audience, if you would like to ask questions, you can please type them in the chat box. I already can see two questions there. But before I get into the question, Shourya, something again back to you as a person. What do you do when you're not working? Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything which makes you happy? Something you're passionate about, but not related to work?
Well, I love to relax with my glass of wine and listen to Jagjit Singh ghazals. That's something I really enjoy. Uh, Apart from that, there was something which I used to do as a student, and that was writing poems and writing poetry in Hindi. And this lockdown, somewhere rekindled that flame somewhere, and I've started writing again. So, and I realized that that is very therapeutic, and it kinds of de-stresses you. and it's just a powerful overflow of emotions recollected in tranquility. Was it William Wordsworth? I think so. Poetry is the powerful emotions recollected in tranquility. I think that was it. So yeah, that's about me. And of course, this lockdown has helped me to spend some time, rather a lot of time, with family. So much so that I have started with the lockdown being relaxed. I've started going back to work now.
Okay. I think that's something a lot of us have in common where we are spending a lot of time at home, and therefore many people have rekindled these old passions and hobbies. For me, I started writing more. I have always written, but I think I've written more than I've ever done in a certain period of time because of the extra time that I've got. So I have questions in the chat box now. So we have
Mhm.
about 15 minutes.
Okay,
So let's see if we can take some of the questions. So
sure.
I will start off with a question which is coming from Amit Pandey, and he has asked, how do you see contribution of analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., for HR in the VUCA world? So, how have you seen AI and machine learning playing a role for HR?
Counter question to Mr. Pandey. How many of us have the basic intelligence that we talk about artificial intelligence? First, let us develop the basic intelligence to do things properly. Yes, but that aside, artificial intelligence is a reality. We need to understand how best we make use of it. It cannot replace human intelligence. And that's my personal take. It can never replace human intelligence, but we have to make the best use of it in areas we can. About, he also mentioned about machine learning. So, the both of them would practically move on together, and not much of a difference there. But, you know, another thing is that the analytics part, yes, analytics helps. There's no doubt about that. It helps a lot of in the predictive process. In a lot of business processes, it helps. Uh, but will we have enough time going ahead to do so much of analytics? So analytics, as I see it, will also undergo a change. Analytics will become more agile, more in the moment than taking a lot of time and coming up with a model and all of that. It has to be quick. So this lockdown and this pandemic has taught us one thing, and that is that the turnaround time has shrunk. The reinvention time has shrunk. You have to be really quick at it.
All right. I see a question from Ayon Banerjee, and this is related to the first point we were discussing on HR business partner. So what he says is, when we label someone as an HR business partner, are we presupposing that HR must also be focusing on the business aspects at the cost of all other dimensions of the organization?
Sorry,
Example, long. Yeah.
could you repeat that again?
All right. So this is Ayan Banerjee's question, and so what he's trying to ask is, if we presuppose that HR must be focusing on business aspects in the role of HR business partner, does it mean that it is done at the cost of other dimensions like long-term strategy, non-financial aspects, market trends, compliance, HR, I mean human resource well-being? There's so many different aspects. So what he's trying to ask is the focus going to be majorly on the business aspects at the cost of the other dimensions?
I don't think it will be at the cost of other dimensions. We are in it all together. So it has to be a concerted effort. It has to be together. You can't have separate issues or separate treatments. It has to all go together. That's my limited take on this.
All right. Here's a question which is about your present experience. So the question is, what is it? I think I'm just trying to read the name. Is it Kedar? I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm really sorry about that. But it's a very interesting question. He's asking, what is Aptech doing to ensure that the workforce is connected to the organization and the leadership while they continue to work from home?
So let me tell you something. The workforce is not connected to the organization and the leadership. It is the other way around. The organization and the leadership is connected to the workforce. And we have various channels, both digital and personal, to stay in touch with all our people. And, we have a very homely culture, if I would say. We are very close-knit. And anyone can talk to anyone. We do not have a system of, while designations and hierarchies will always be there, but we don't have anything like that you can approach this level and you can't approach that level. There's nothing like that. In fact, the entire leadership team of Aptech sits in a glass enclosure, and we do not have individual cabins. We just have workstations, including the managing director. And that has helped us in many ways, that we don't write emails to each other unless when there is an audit trail required. But otherwise we don't. We just discuss things, and it is so much helpful. So the organization is always connected to the workforce in our case.
All right. Now, this is a comment. It's not a question. It's coming from Ashok Mukherjee. So it's a comment. So I just wanted to read that out. He's appreciated your opinion. So Ashok is saying, I really appreciate your opinion on opinion regarding dignity of others. This is the fundamental for HR success to organizational productivity and customer perceived value. Accordingly, HR role should be multifunctional, as you mentioned. So it's a comment from Ashok Mukherjee appreciating your opinion.
Thank you, Ashok.
I will take just one more question. I think we have time enough for that. This comes from Shrija Ghoshal. So I will try to rephrase this question a little bit. So she is asking about, she's saying that HR needs to be part of the revenue generation, multitasking, etc. I mean, it's just I know that she's a student, so I'm just trying to rephrase this question. So HR has to be part of the business. HR has to do this kind of multitasking that you've already talked about. So I think her question is, how would you do it? I mean, what's the approach that you would take so that people in the HR function can take this multi-dimensional roles?
So first thing, which one of my bosses used to tell me long ago, get out of your chair, go to the field. If you are in an FMCG company, go and work the market with the sales representative. Go on those sales calls. You will learn the business. If you are in the IT industry, interact with the customers along with your operations people. If you are in the BPO industry, listen into those calls with proper permission. So you know what are the customer issues, and that will help you chalk out the strategy of the people in your organization, right? So until and unless you go out there and work, and you can't go out there with a plan, you have to jump in. It's like jumping into the pond without knowing swimming. Sorry, swimming pool. Jumping into the swimming pool without knowing swimming, and you learn it. So you have to go in there, you have to get rid of your fears. That will I be able to do that? Self-doubt has to be, nullified. Can I do it? Can I not? No. At the most, what will happen if I go and do it? I may not like it, but I will at least come back learning two or three things. In my stint during in General Mills, this was 2001-2. They had launched a product called the Pillsbury Pan Fresh Pizza. I had gone. I was an HR manager then, and I had gone working the market along with the salespeople to understand what is it that people are looking for, because that was the first time a complete, you could make the pizza on a pan in 8 minutes flat. So how you could do that, it was a fantastic experience for me to learn about the customer needs in a different market. Now again, there a customer in Mumbai, and within Mumbai, different areas, they would have different preferences. A customer in Delhi would be different. A customer in Kolkata would be different. Pune, at that, which has a lot of the student population, they would react differently. So different areas react. Different areas have different preferences, different customers. So that's how you get to know different aspects of the business. I hope I've answered her, Zubin.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Looking at the time, it seems I should take one more question. There's still questions pouring in. And this is, again, from a student perspective. I thought, let me just take it up. Maybe not completely related to what we're discussing here. But what do you look for in an MBA graduate coming out and wanting to enter the job market? What would you look for? And also, I think I'll just connect it to the new normal that we are in. And therefore, does that change what it was earlier, or does it still remain the same in terms of what you're looking for in an MBA graduate?
The ability to learn, the ability to pick up things, and the ability to deliver. That's it. If you sorry,
please go ahead.
And of course, all these three things depend on a positive outlook and a positive attitude.
Right. And on a closing note, I got to know it was Qadar Khan, if I have pronounced it correctly, who had asked a question earlier. On a closing note, I would take up his question. He wants to hear from you a recommendation on a book or a movie that you loved, you like, and you think gives a positive message. So, I mean, this is on a different note, but coming back to you on a personal aspect, like, is there any book or movie that you really recommend?
Well, I do read a lot, but there's no specific book as such which I would like to recommend. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's the individual preferences. In terms of movie that reminds me, today is the 81st birthday of Pancham, Rahul Dev Burman, right? So celebrate that. I mean, his movies, then the songs were fabulous. I mean, nobody can ever replicate that or even come close to that.
I agree. I think we haven't found, I mean, these are all personal perceptions, but we haven't found somebody who could, have the same kind of stature that R.D. Burman had.
Absolutely.
Right. This was a very interesting discussion. We went into different aspects, not only on business and HR, but also we went on to knowing a little bit more about you. Thank you so much, Shourya, for accepting an invitation, for being part of HR Speak. We've gained a lot from you.
I enjoyed talking to you, Zubin, and this interaction was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks to all our audience for joining in. And till the next HR Speak, for now, we say goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.